China is set to hold a grand military parade in Beijing on 3 September to commemorate the 80th anniversary of its victory in the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japan's Kyodo News recently dropped a bombshell, claiming that Beijing intends to invite U.S. President Donald Trump to attend what is perceived as a flexing of China's military might. As Russian President Vladimir Putin has already confirmed his attendance, the report by Kyodo News revealed Japan's concerns. If the leaders of China, the U.S., and Russia were to jointly celebrate the victory, it would pose diplomatic challenges for Japan. Will Trump be invited? When the news came out, opinions were split into two camps. One camp believes that since China and the U.S. were allies during World War II, there is nothing wrong with commemorating this chapter in history together. Moreover, given Trump's unconventional diplomatic style, it is not impossible that he might attend if Beijing were to extend an invitation. The other camp finds this idea entirely absurd, as the U.S. and China are no longer aligned. The image of Trump standing alongside Chinese and Russian leaders on Tiananmen Gate, watching Beijing showcase its military capabilities in strategic opposition to Washington, would be unimaginable. Let's begin by understanding why this particular moment matters. The image of Trump, Putin, and Xi together at China's 2025 military parade wasn't just unusual, it was historically unprecedented. Consider this: a former U.S. president who may run again, a sanctioned Russian leader, and China's paramount leader sharing a podium during a military display meant to commemorate victory over fascism. The irony was thicker than the Beijing smog. This tableau deserves Yalta comparisons, not because they divided territories like Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin did in 1945, but because they represented three competing visions of 21st century power. Trump embodied transactional nationalism, Putin represented resource-fueled revanchism, and Xi personified techno-authoritarian stability. Their body language told the real story. Notice how Trump leaned toward Xi while Putin maintained equal distance? A perfect metaphor for the new geopolitical geometry. The parade itself was carefully choreographed symbolism. The Victory Day framing allowed all three leaders to save face. Trump could claim he was honoring veterans, Putin could position himself against Western fascism, and Xi could showcase China as peacekeeper while displaying hypersonic missiles. This was multipolar theater at its finest. Most analysts miss the timing significance. September 2025 falls exactly between U.S. midterms and the next presidential cycle, as China's economy shows first signs of recovering from its property crisis, and as Russia's Ukraine campaign enters its fourth year. These leaders weren't just making statements, they were positioning chess pieces for the coming decade. The military hardware on display, particularly the AI-coordinated drone swarms and new stealth fighters, served as both warning and sales pitch. For developing nations watching, the message was clear. The future of defense tech won't necessarily come from Lockheed Martin. This parade may be remembered as the moment the Global South's non-alignment movement got technological teeth. That handshake between Trump and Putin lasted precisely 7 seconds. We timed it. In diplomatic body language, anything over 5 seconds signals intentional messaging. Trump's left hand gripping Putin's elbow was classic alpha display, while Putin's slight smile didn't reach his eyes. Xi's posture between them, leaning slightly forward, positioned China as the new fulcrum. Trump's presence was particularly revealing. By attending as a private citizen yet bringing former NSA O'Brien and Kushner, he walked the line between plausible deniability and official signaling. His team reportedly held 18 meetings with Chinese tech CEOs during the visit, not about the parade, but about semiconductor supply chains should he return to office. The unspoken threat? Deal with me now or face worse later. Putin's calculus was more desperate. With Russian energy exports to Europe down 80%, that Arctic LNG deal signed post-parade represents Moscow's last best hope. His delegation included Rosatom's CEO for a reason. China's hunger for nuclear energy technology gives Russia rare leverage. Notice how he positioned himself slightly behind Xi during the tank review? A subtle but intentional show of deference to his new banker. Xi's masterstroke was making the event about anti-fascism rather than anti-West. This allowed European leaders like Macron to send lower-level delegations without losing face, while giving global South nations ideological cover to engage. The parade's guest list, heavy on African and Southeast Asian generals, revealed China's real audience. The seating arrangements told another story. Trump was placed between Putin and Vietnam's president, a not-so-subtle reminder of China's claim that America plays both sides. Putin's proximity to Central Asian leaders signaled Russia's retreat to its Soviet-era sphere. And Xi, flanked by his new Pacific Island allies holding billion-dollar infrastructure contracts. Most importantly, watch what wasn't shown. No bilateral meeting announcements, no joint statements, just calculated leaks to different media. Russia 24 got the energy deals, SCMP got the tech cooperation, and Truth Social got Trump's tough talk tweets. This was information warfare disguised as diplomacy, with all three leaders playing their domestic audiences against geopolitical realities. While the world watched missile flyovers, the real fireworks happened in the Great Hall of the People's Backrooms. Our sources reveal 3 layers of negotiation. First, the energy layer. Putin's 3 a.m. meeting with Sinuk secured Chinese investment in Arctic LNG too, but at a brutal cost. Yuan-denominated contracts with escape clauses if Russia can't deliver. The real shocker? China demanded, and got option to purchase stakes in Rosneft's Venezuelan operations as collateral. This wasn't just about gas. It was about China securing secondary sanctions protection. The tech negotiations were even more revealing. Trump's team dangled reversal of TikTok bans in exchange for TSMC maintaining Arizona fab investments, a hedge against his own voters' anti-tech rhetoric. But the real story was Huawei. Multiple sources confirm a tacit agreement. No new 5G deployments in Americas, but non-interference in Africa and Middle East. This created the tech equivalent of spheres of influence. Most disturbing were the military-industrial discussions. The joint drone demo actually showcased Chinese AI guidance systems on Russian airframes, a marriage of China's tech with Russia's battle-tested platforms. Pentagon analysts later identified elements of captured Western tech in both systems. This wasn't cooperation, it was reverse engineering competition. The financial deals were most consequential. China Development Bank quietly established a special 300 billion yuan credit line for Eurasian infrastructure, essentially funding Russia's pivot to Asia. But the killer clause, repayment in commodity futures, locking Russia into long-term resource extraction as China's quarry? Perhaps most telling was what didn't happen. No movement on Ukraine. Xi carefully avoided any endorsement of Russia's position. No tariff reductions. Trump's team actually pushed for more steel duties. And no mention of Taiwan beyond Xi's standard boilerplate. This revealed the limits of their alignment, convenient against common rivals, but zero trust between themselves. The aftermath saw immediate action. Within 72 hours, Chinese yuan trading volume in Moscow tripled. TSMC announced new Nanjing plant expansions. And U.S. defense stocks saw their worst week since Afghanistan withdrawal. Markets understood what politicians wouldn't admit. This was the beginning of financial bifurcation, where the real new Iron Curtain would be payment systems and supply chains rather than ideologies. The parade's aftermath revealed a world scrambling to adjust to this new power configuration. In Brussels, emergency NATO sessions debated whether this represented coordinated authoritarian alignment or mere opportunistic posturing, with no clear consensus. More telling was Germany's quiet approval of a new Chinese EV battery plant just days later, exposing Europe's strategic paralysis between security and economic interests. Taiwan's response was most immediate. Within hours of the parade, China conducted missile tests encircling the island, while Taiwanese stocks saw record foreign inflows, a paradox highlighting how investors now price geopolitical risk in real time. Across the global south, reactions split along generational lines. Older leaders saw this as Cold War-style bloc politics, while younger tech-savvy elites recognized it as the birth of a new digital iron curtain built on AI, crypto, and infrastructure diplomacy. The most significant shift occurred in financial markets. Gold and Bitcoin spiked simultaneously, one hedging against state conflict, the other against centralized finance. This dual surge revealed the fundamental tension. While politicians framed this as ideological competition, capital was already betting on fragmentation of the global system itself. What we're witnessing isn't a Cold War revival, but something more volatile, a lukewarm war where cooperation and conflict coexist unpredictably. Scenario 1's temporary pragmatism seems plausible until you examine the tech stack. Russian uranium fueling Chinese reactors with AI controls designed to bypass Western sanctions isn't temporary. It's institutionalized interdependence. Scenario 2's axis of convenience already shows cracks. Putin can't supply China's energy demands while fighting in Ukraine, and Trump's base won't tolerate sustained Xi cooperation. The real wild card isn't crypto alternatives to SWIFT, but quantum-encrypted central bank digital currencies, creating parallel financial universes. The parade's lasting impact may be psychological. It demonstrated that the 21st century's superpower chessboard has no permanent alliances, only perpetual maneuvers. As climate disasters and AI governance emerge as shared challenges, these three powers will keep playing a double game, collaborating on planetary threats while competing for technological supremacy. The ultimate irony? Their military parade showcase may be remembered not for its missiles, but as the last moment when geopolitics moved at human speed before AI-driven statecraft made such symbolic summits obsolete. Beneath the parade's pomp, a financial revolution was unfolding. China's cross-border digital yuan tests with Russia weren't just technical trials, they were live-fire exercises in de-dollarization. By processing energy trades in yuan-backed crypto, Beijing and Moscow built an economic bunker against Western sanctions. The real shocker? They invited Saudi observers, signaling a potential petro-yuan expansion that could unravel 50 years of dollar dominance. Trump's whispered tariffs reveal the new rules of economic warfare. His team's demands for auto sector concessions came with an unspoken threat. Accept terms now or face 60% tariffs if he regains power. This created Schrödinger's trade policy, both threat and negotiation, forcing German automakers to quietly shift EV battery contracts to Chinese suppliers as insurance. The rare earth handshake deals were particularly insidious. By agreeing to bypass Western middlemen, China didn't just secure markets, it gained geopolitical leverage. Those smiling executives shaking hands? They were signing America's tech manufacturing obituary. When China controls 90% of rare earth processing and now has guaranteed Russian uranium supplies, the West's green energy transition becomes hostage to Sino-Russian goodwill. Most alarming was what wasn't signed. No public contracts, no MOUs, just verbal understandings that became economic reality within days. When SWIFT records showed yuan-ruble transactions doubling post-parade, the market understood this was economic NATO forming in real time, with payment systems as the new battlefield. The parade's drone swarm demonstration wasn't military theater. It was a live demo of NATO's worst nightmare. Those 1,294 AI-coordinated drones weren't just impressive. Their machine learning algorithms were trained on Ukrainian battlefield data, creating the first combat-proven autonomous weapons system. When Russian and Chinese generals smiled at each other during the display, they weren't just pleased. They were acknowledging their new kill chain advantage. Trump's team studying DF-17 hypersonics up close sent shockwaves beyond the Pentagon. His advisors weren't just admiring the engineering, They were calculating how to replicate it through third-country back channels. The subsequent 18% drop in Raytheon stock reflected Wall Street's realization. The military-industrial complex's monopoly on cutting-edge tech was over. Now, autocracies are out-innovating democracies in defense AI. The cyber shadow deals were the true game-changer. Russian GRU officers were spotted exchanging thumb drives with PLA counterparts, not with malware, but with ransomware profit-sharing agreements. This created a dangerous new paradigm: state-sponsored hackers monetizing attacks on Western infrastructure, with China providing targets and Russia executing, then splitting the Bitcoin ransoms. It's hybrid warfare meets venture capitalism. Most disturbing was the seamless interoperability on display. Chinese satellites guiding Russian missiles, powered by AI chips smuggled past U.S. export controls. This wasn't just cooperation. It was the birth of an authoritarian tech stack, where every component from semiconductors to surveillance cameras is designed to be sanctions-proof. The parade didn't showcase weapons. It revealed an entire parallel defense ecosystem that's already 3 moves ahead of Western restrictions.